We are having Jerry Gidel at the end of the Thanksgiving week to discuss the trading during this week and big reduction of South American crop right here on Connected Farmer, your channel to keep you up to date with the latest trends in agriculture and livestock. Jerry, how are you today? So it seems that the weather in South America has impacted a lot the trade this week, right?
Oh, definitely. The features here that's been underlined through this whole last couple of weeks, really. There's been some forecasts of rains potentially getting into Mato Grosso, but with the amounts have not been as strong as the forecasts, and that even today, interestingly enough, one of the last things that's just come out here recent as we got past the close here in the U.S. Was that Sassafras Americano decided to reduce the size of their basically spring crop, the Rio Grande do Sul and Paraná crop, because of the fact that the weather has been iffy. I'd have to say it's probably been closer to normal than what's happened in Mato Grosso. Mato Grosso is where you normally have plenty of rain this time of year, or at least starts raining better than it has since the middle of October. And this year, the Mato Grosso area has not had as much. And there's been some interesting photos surfaced in the trade the last couple of weeks or so here about lack of growth and things like that. But today's news right there, as I said, from Sassafras Americano, reduced their crop size down about 3 or 4 million metric tons, along with their projections. If you on corn along the way, they've got a number about 102, 103 versus the USDA's 110, and that's interesting in the fact that corn, particularly this thing, could have a tremendous switch if we get a delay here in getting the soybean crop moving and actually get a good crop developing down there on beans. Because the biggest thing is you can't plant corn if you don't get the beans up and growing and get them harvested so they can be planted before the middle of March.
And I think all of those things make the farmers think that the $13 is the new number.
Now, U.S. dollars values here have weakened some. I think that's what I missed a little bit of that scenario. Particularly Argentina is very sensitive about that particular situation where their peso has continued to be very weak, and that's reduced a lot of activity in Argentina, particularly with the weather not being good. You put the two together and minimal kind of things. I actually thought I saw somewhere the statistics on Argentina's crushing facilities are only 45%, or 45% were idled. So, man, that's nearly half their activity here when they're normally a very strong crushing facility. Now, I realize that we're at the end of last year's season, but even then, that seems like a pretty low level to me.
Yes, at the same time, a lot of soybeans to sell, and that probably would come by March when they expect to get the new harvest.
Right. Yeah. If we're running this slow now between now and then, man, that's a long time. That actually brings things back into the U.S. We had a very strong October crush, and I don't know. I didn't really sense that it was a huge amount of that was for export trade, but it could be going forward, and we could continue to have a strong domestic and an export situation if Argentina doesn't end up picking up the slack here in some of their export or some of their normal export situations, because they're traditionally the biggest exporter of meal other than the U.S. here on a worldwide basis.
And what did you think about the weekly exports?
This week's exports, a little disappointing, you'd have to say, but the problem is that we've already got it at 85, 86% here, 87% on our sales for the year. I know people sense that, well, they're going to have to increase these exports from the 2.2. Boy, there's 100 million expectations out there. The biggest problem in this thing is that we haven't seen our main buyer step into the U.S. market here on soybean sales. Even today's weekly exports did not show any Chinese buying in soybeans. And our soybean total here this week was to the lowest of the season at under 30 million metric tons. 30 million bushels, I should say. But the thing is, we only need to have 7 million sales to reach the USDA. So we're still way ahead. The problem is once you get used to seeing numbers like 50, 60, 70, even hundreds, something under 30 kind of says, oh, what's wrong? Well, the problem is that we're running out of buyers here at these levels on that. We are right here at the $12 mark. I guess as I said before here, the $12 area was a place to make some sales. I guess it'll be real interesting if we can find some reason to get above $12. Then we really do open up another significant upside potential if anybody wants to step in here at this point. Corn is the interesting one. It's had a very good week this week on exports on corn. And that we were above expectations, and our total bushels were pretty solid out there. And at this point, we just need something like 28 or 29 million. I think we doubled that this week on our export sales from there. So the corn side of things, and then now we've had this potential revision by Sassuros Mercado about the corn size in Brazil. Maybe that's going to make an opportunity to slip up or have an advance in this market next week if we have less rain out there for a chance to get up to our 440 sales objective that we've had out here for a couple of weeks.
And of course, next week we are going to get new numbers from both Conab and USDA. And what do you expect from about them, and also about the new month?
Well, yeah, it comes out the 9th, but we're going to have all our trade numbers together by the end of next week. From there, we'll probably have specific ones to talk about maybe when we visit next Friday and that. But I guess it's we're definitely not getting any changes in the U.S. crop size. We don't make an update in December, and that we wait now to the final number in January. We were on the 10th or 11th of the month out there in January is when we get that. So that won't be a factor. The big question will be, will the USDA expand these exports? I think that the biggest problem right now is that we've got numbers that are pretty outstanding, and we could use a little stronger pace here from China on corn. Mexico actually was the big buyer this last week in our total, along with some overnight sales, which is good. They've been our normal number one buyer for the last 2 or 3 years. Actually overtook Japan maybe 3 or 4 years ago from there. But at the same time, to get to that 2.6 number that the USDA put out this last month, we need to end up having up a little stronger here on corn. There's some indications they will. Right now, though, this is a tricky time of the year when you're kind of going in. We just got through one holiday, and then we kind of get a lot of people get a little bit reluctant to do anything. But weather could force people's hands, and maybe that's going to prompt that thing to go up. I have to say that the corn is the one probably that will have a chance to maybe go up a little bit on demand, which will reduce our carryover stock. Soybeans is real interesting. The crush is looking fantastic, but I think that both of these crops in the U.S. have a chance to slip down maybe a half to 1 bushel more in corn and maybe a half a bushel more in beans. And half a bushel is 40 million. And we're already at a 190 on carryover stock. And I guess I'm anticipating the USDA being conservative on their demand numbers after they really didn't make the, well, they made an adjustment in production last month, but they didn't change any of the demand. I'd have to say maybe we'll take down demand or increase something in the demand structure 10 to 20 million, but I don't sense that there's going to be a big change in those numbers until we really, I think even the world is getting back to wait and see what kind of bean crop looks like here as we get into early 2021. The one thing we got to always remember, and it's always something that I think I got to keep an eye on myself, is the fact that soybeans can hang on and wait for rain. And if all of a sudden we get a different weather regime in South America and we get back to normal rains or even above normal rains, we could still bounce back that Mato Grosso bean crop, and then everybody would be able to sit back and everybody would be able to take it easy. But I guess that's the biggest question. We all need to figure out how to get our best weather forecast and make sure we know exactly when it's going to rain in South America, and particularly in Mato Grosso in 2021.
You seem to be not afraid today, Jerry.
I'm cautious. I guess it's a ways away about what's going to happen in the weather out there. I've been too many times here at the end of the year and everybody gets all gunned up, and then all of a sudden it doesn't happen because South America and the Brazilian soybean crop, because of the rain tendencies and the long-term trends in that country on weather, they can come back and still have a good crop. I think the 133, 134 million metric ton crops, I'm not buying that. But at the same time, 125, 120, 125 could still happen. And that's, I think, could cause a lot of people to wait for the South American crop. But at this point, we are really on the nice edge here. We could, if things don't improve over the next 10 days, 2 weeks, we could have things get quite emotional as we go into the end of the year.
That was it for now. Thanks a lot, Jerry Gidel.
Thank you for having me, Louis, as always.